Test positive for coronavirus days after he was here in Cleveland. His wife and a close advisor also positive.
They remain in good spirits. The president does have mild symptoms.
We have the latest on their health, the testing and safety procedures done before the debate, and whether members of his team could have been contagious while they were here.
Everyone in my area had been tested. We were all COVID-free. And that there were sanitation stations all around.
And we talk live with our Andrew Horansky about interviewing members of the Trump family while they were here in Cleveland. What's new starts now. Hello again, Northeast Ohio, and thanks so much for choosing What's New on this very busy Friday. I'm Jay Crawford.
And I'm Betsy Kling, and along with us for the hour is our senior health correspondent, Monica Robbins. And Monica, this has been a huge day.
Oh, Betsy, a very, very big day. And unfortunately, one that is not surprising to me, considering the president's mixed messaging on masks. We just wish him and the First Lady well and a speedy recovery. And I'll try to break down what we know so it may help everyone understand a little more. And hopefully we can all learn from this, too.
All right. Well, we do want to get you caught up with the very latest on what we do know right now. The president's physician has just said that the president is in good spirits, but fatigued after he and the First Lady tested positive for coronavirus. NBC News is reporting that the president also has a low-grade fever as one of his symptoms. Melania tweeted that she has mild symptoms, but overall is feeling pretty good. Reportedly, she has a mild cough and a headache. The Trump's 14-year-old son, Barron, who also, of course, lives in the White House, has tested negative. Now, as for where all of this began, as far as this part of the story goes, we have to back it up to Hope Hicks. Hope Hicks tested positive early Thursday morning, and that is the possible connection to the president as far as coronavirus goes. She took that test, and of course, it kind of set off a firestorm of the stories, and now we're kind of seeing who else has been connected with that. One person that has tested negative is on the other side of things. That would be former Vice President and Democratic nominee Joe Biden. He and his wife Jill have both tested negative for coronavirus out of all of this. Of course, those two came together during the debate, but the both camps, both nominees were separated far enough that they do believe social distancing rules really played an impact in keeping everyone separated. By the way, Mike Pence, Vice President Mike Pence, has also tested negative in all of this. Jay?
We have complete team coverage. Russ Mitchell will join us shortly. Monica will stay with us for analysis. Andrew Horansky will describe what he saw covering the debate and interviewing Donald Trump Jr. And Mark Namick is standing by with whether the Cleveland Clinic followed the safety protocols put in place for the debate. But first, we're learning more about how the president is being treated. We've just learned that President Trump is taking an experimental treatment. Monica, it's called Regeneron. What do you know about it?
Well, it's the Regeneron Polyclonal Antibody cocktail, and it was given to the president as a precaution. It's an investigational antibody cocktail that is still experimental, but on Wednesday, the company released data showing it reduced viral load and the time to alleviate symptoms in non-hospitalized patients with COVID-19. And it's something that needs to be given early on during the infection. Now, the drug is currently in clinical trials, and according to the New York Times, the CEO of the company has known the president personally for several years. Bets?
Well, what will be the standard of care for the president and First Lady? I have to assume that they're going to get extra special attention.
Yeah, one would definitely assume that. In fact, I'm guessing they're getting the best care in the world right now, but they're going to treat their symptoms as best they can. The president is also taking zinc, vitamin D, famotidine, which is an acid like Pepsid, melatonin, and a daily aspirin. And the first couple, has the best health care. But the president does fit the category that may have a difficult time with COVID because of his age. And the next 3 to 4 days are going to be critical in monitoring his health. So the president's BMI is a bit on the higher end. And typically being overweight causes an inflammatory response in the body, which doesn't help when fighting infection. And many people who've had severe cases of COVID have been obese as an underlying condition. So here's what they're going to be able to watch for.
Mostly what they're going to be looking at is his breathing and his oxygen levels to make sure he's keeping himself, that his body is able to deliver oxygen to all parts of his body. And as long as that stays good, as long as he, isn't having trouble breathing and isn't having trouble with his oxygen, then he should be able to manage it at home.
All right, very good. Monica, stay with us because obviously we've got a lot more to discuss on this, and we want to get to many more things that are going on. Right now, we have some video. This is one of President Trump's senior advisor, and we talked about her, Hope Hicks. She was the first one in the camp to test positive. She was actually touching the handrail of Air Force One, and fellow advisor Jared Kushner, who of course is the son-in-law to President Trump, touches the handrail immediately afterwards. Now, Hicks tested positively shortly before the president. It should be noted that Kushner has tested positive. But Monica, this is what we've talked about on and on. It's that contact spreading of this virus that we've seen that is so critical. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, we know that the virus can survive on surfaces, including metal surfaces and doorknobs. So if Hicks may have coughed in her hand and touched that surface, it is possible that the virus could have been transmitted to others who touched that same spot and then went ahead and touched their eyes, their nose, and their mouth. So this is why I keep telling you that washing your hands is so incredibly important, as well as touching your face. You don't want to do that at this time.
All right, Monica, thank you very much. Again, stand by. We're going to be with you again shortly. Obviously, this story has a huge local angle, as the president and his team were here earlier just this week for the first presidential debate. Mark Namick has been working that local angle all day long and has the latest now from local officials.
Everyone entering the debate hall on the Cleveland Clinic campus tested negative for the coronavirus. The clinic, which hosted the event and is the health security advisor to the Commission on Presidential Debates, also required everyone inside to wear masks, a key recommendation to help slow the spread of the virus. But witnesses, video and photos show the members of the president's family and his campaign were not wearing them during the debate, though members of the media were required to wear masks, and Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's campaign and guests also had them on. The clinic not discussing its efforts to enforce protocols. In a statement, the clinic says everyone had to wear a mask to enter, but acknowledged some people removed them, adding a clinic physician offered masks to those without them on, but, quote, some did not adhere to the requirement. Governor Mike DeWine sidestepping a question today about the clinic's handling of the event. But Lieutenant Governor John Husted, who was at the debate, says the clinic appeared to take every precaution.
Everybody that was in my sight line had a mask on outside of the participants in the debate. Well, I know that there were a couple people there who may not have had. I thought the Cleveland Clinic did a really fine job, along with Case Western.
Now, there are no cases of the coronavirus being traced to the night of the debate inside. But the city of Cleveland today said 11 people involved in the setup of this event have tested positive, and that was before the debate evening. Now, for the governor, he didn't want to criticize anybody for not wearing a mask, but still urges people to do so when they're out in public.
Mark,
Jay?
I'm not sure if you can answer this. I'd like clarification. You said there were 11 people involved in setting up the debate that had tested positive. Was that after they had already done the work setting up the debate and then they tested positive? Did they know that? Or I can't imagine they knew they were positive and let them go ahead with debate setup regardless.
Jay, it's a good question. There's a lot of unanswered issues about the timeline. We had heard about this Monday night that people may have tested positive who had come in, but it was not confirmed until today, and we don't know the timeline. But presumably, they were all involved and had to be tested just to be here working. So we will be following up with that more in the near future,
yeah,
Jay.
We're very interested to get the answers on that. Also, Mark, do we know whether or not the president and his team actually underwent tests in D.C. before boarding Air Force One and before coming to Cleveland?
Yeah, there's definitely more testing going on among the White House and his staff than, the NBA bubble, for sure. And they are required to get tested before getting on the airplane and coming to such events. So they were. At this point, that is what they've been saying.
Okay. Mark Namick with the very latest. Mark, thanks. Let's bring Monica back in. Monica, the clinic has guidelines. Clearly, those guidelines were not followed. Should they face any fines for not following their own mask mandate?
I don't think that's going to happen based on the governor's response, but the governor's order does not specify penalties. Most law enforcement agencies have already said they're not going to enforce the mask mandate, and businesses have been left with the penalties if they don't, which eventually might lead to some more legal challenges. But according to state law, defiance of a health order is a second-degree misdemeanor, punishable by up to 90 days in jail or a $750 fine. But it doesn't seem like anybody is enforcing that. The health department could have authority to do so, but it seems they're taking the public education approach to all of this. And also, this is a catch-22. You're talking about challenging the president's family. However, personally, I have seen people yelled at by employees at local grocery stores for walking into the store without a mask. Masks are mandated in Ohio, but who ultimately should enforce it is murky, and I really doubt we're going to get a much clearer answer anytime soon.
Well, certainly it is a big topic of discussion that continues to carry on as the mask, no mask debate continues, certainly. But that is something that I think a lot of people are asking is where did the Cleveland Clinic stand on all of this and how did they enforce that? We'll continue to follow that angle on this, too. Thanks a lot, Monica. Well, as you can imagine, this story has been changing by the hour. Sometimes it's been changing by the minute.
Yeah. I mean, details are flowing into the newsroom throughout, particularly within the last hour. Russ Mitchell's been following all of it, and he's here now to fill us in on the latest big developments. All you can say, Russ, is wow.
Wow, about 9:45 last night is when we first got word of this, and Betsy was here.
Yep.
Up until 11 o'clock, it was nonstop, things changing every minute. So here's the latest that we know right now. Presidential nominee Joe Biden confirmed that he and his wife Jill tested positive this morning. The same goes for his VP pick, Kamala Harris, and her husband. Biden still traveled to Michigan this afternoon for a planned campaign trip, and Harris will continue to Texas. Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel has also tested positive for coronavirus. She was last with the president last Friday, a week ago, and has been in Michigan since then. And as soon as the news about the president's positive test came out, stock markets fell in the U.S. and around the world. The S&P closed down nearly 1%. The NASDAQ dropped more than 2%. Worldwide, stocks in Japan and Germany also fell. I am so sorry. I made a mistake there. He is negative, not positive. I apologize for that. That's a big mistake. Thank you in my ear, folks in my ear, for correcting me.
Vice President and former Vice President Joe Biden
is fine. He's all good.
Russ, as we look forward here, the next really big date on the calendar is the second of 3 presidential debates. That's scheduled to take place 2 weeks from today. We know that those that suffer mild symptoms tend to be up and at it again after about 10 days. Have you given any thought as to what happens next if perhaps that second debate can't happen as scheduled? We're a month away from electing the next president.
And listening to the pundits today, the smart money is there will be no more presidential debates. That's the smart money right now. There is a vice presidential debate next week, and what I understand that is still on. Again, the smart money there is both the current vice president and VP nominee Kamala Harris tested negative, so there's no reason for that not to go forward. But again, listening to the pundits today, it's very doubtful that these next 2 presidential debates will actually happen.
Unfortunate for voters, because you and I have talked, we didn't learn much from that first debate. We really didn't.
We did not. We did not at all. And there have been many adjectives described to that, and yes, we'll just leave it at that.
Many we can't use here. That's on true. What's New. Russ, thanks. We'll see you in the next half hour.
Thank you.
Next on What's New, we're digging deeper into the president's diagnosis and his symptoms. NBC's top infectious doctor is going to join the program next.
And if you remember back to Tuesday, our Andrew Horansky interviewed members of the Trump family who were unmasked. He's going to be talking about that close encounter that you see there, especially in light of the latest developments.
And Matt has been keeping his eye on the forecast. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Betsy. Yeah, it's going to get pretty chilly tonight. Frost advisories have been posted. We'll let you know how cold it's going to get. That's coming up.
Welcome back to What's New. Right now, we want to join NBC News. They have a special report already in progress.
Can we hear it?
Administration official tells me that in about 15 minutes, President Trump is expected to walk out of the White House and board Marine One for the short flight to Walter Reed Medical Center. He will spend a few days there, I'm told, working out of the presidential offices at the facility, according to this official. The president has been fighting fatigue, according to his doctor. Sources tell us he's been battling low-grade fever as well, those familiar with his condition. The symptoms are still mild, I'm told by a senior administration official, and the White House reiterates he is in good spirits. He is, in their words, doing well, but this is a precautionary measure that was recommended by the doctors. Lester, it is significant still that the president will be spending time at Walter Reed. I don't have a timeline for you. I don't know what the next few days means at this point. We are working to find out more, but this is the most serious health crisis that a president has faced in decades. Again, symptoms mild, that is what we're being told, but we are getting a better sense of what exactly those symptoms are.
This means
B3 should be killed. B3 should be killed. It's outdated now if he's going to Walter Reed.
Let's go ahead and take him to the hospital, watch him for a few days, maybe a few nights, just to make sure everything's okay, because if something does change, if it starts to worsen, you want the equipment, you want the facilities, you want the people that have an understanding of the procedures to be on hand to do things immediately. You don't want to have to worry about that transportation time. Again, for the average person, this would concern me. For the president, not so much, because again, they're being extra precautious here.
All right, Dr. John, thanks. Let me turn to senior Washington correspondent Andrea Mitchell now. She's following all this with us. Andrea, we have seen historically that White Houses in general are often not super transparent when it comes to